for joining the City of Kingston Common Council at our Laws and Rules meeting. Today is Wednesday, November 18th. Before we begin, we would like to go over a few guidelines to help us navigate the system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. The moderator for tonight is City Clerk Elisa Tinti, and she reserves the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Council members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noises and feedback. If a council member or staff wishes to speak, they will raise their hand. I will call members by stating their name clearly for audio listeners. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city website. Although we will not have public speaking tonight, you can sign up to speak at our monthly council meetings. Please email Elisa Tinti to sign up by noon of the day of the meeting, or you can submit written comments for the record by the same deadline. The email address is emtinti@kingston-ny.gov. You can also drop comments off at the drop box located outside the side door of City Hall. We also encourage you to reach to committee chairs and your ward's representative at any time. City Clerk Elisa Tinti is the moderator for today's meeting. She has the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance me, Jeffrey Ventura Morel, the committee chair, committee members Rita Worthington, Ward 4, Rennie Scott Childress, Ward 3, Patrick O'Reilly, Ward 7, and Don Tallerman, Ward 5. Non-committee members, Ward 9, Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch, and city staff, Corp Counsel Dan Gartenstein. Thank you for your patience during these difficult times, and on behalf of the Common Council, I wish you and your family good health. I now call this meeting to order at 6:35. Okay. And the first order of business is the memorializing resolution request that was submitted by Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch. So I will let her speak on it. Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi, Jeffrey. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks. Thank you for putting this on the agenda for this evening. This is a really important issue for our community and our county. During COVID, Health Alliance Hospital, the Hudson Valley, transferred our beds out of the Marys Avenue campus, 60 inpatient hospital beds for mental health and our detox unit, and sent them over to Mid-Hudson Hospital in Poughkeepsie. And we believed that this was going to be temporary. And so people are now that need services and inpatient care are waiting a much longer time here in the emergency room at the Kingston ER, waiting for beds to open up either over in Poughkeepsie or as far away as Westchester. This is creating a real burden on our community, decreased access to much needed services. So we have a really very, very dangerous opioid epidemic currently, in our community that we've been fighting for the past few years. In 2018, we had some pretty high numbers, and we were able to bring them down in 2019. And by the first month, by March of this year, we were almost at the number of overdoses that we were at in 2019. And so between January of this year and July, our opioid fatalities have gone up 171% since last year. And so we were always under the impression that our beds were going to come back once COVID was over and once Marys Avenue Hospital, a Health Alliance, was declassified as a COVID hospital. But now Westchester Medical Center said that they are making an application to the State Department of Health to permanently remove these beds from Health Alliance Hospital of the Hudson Valley. So there's so much going on with COVID right now. I think that we need to send a strong message to the State Department of Health and ask them to deny the application, and that, involve stakeholders, local governments need to weigh in and say that we need these beds back here in our community, that our community is affected by this move of the beds out of the county.
Thank you. Alderman Tellerman?
Thanks. Michelle, what's their rationale? Like, have they gotten word that that there's opposition to what they're doing, and have they issued any statements in response?
Who, the state or Westchester Medical Center?
Westchester Medical. So 2 questions. What's their rationale in the first place? And second, do you know if they've responded since?
Well, the rationale in the first place was to create capacity for COVID overflow, COVID hospital, a designated state, hospital where patients could be sent. And the rationale to not return them is because the Office of Mental Health in the state oversees all of the beds in the state. So if there's beds available 3 hours away, they consider our area as having beds available. For example, we don't have children's inpatient mental health services in Ulster County. Children have to go as far away as Westchester for inpatient care. But the way the state looks at it, there's beds available.
But for the hospital says they are.
So the hospital rationale is that they make more money because Dutchess County, the way Medicaid is set up and reimbursement rates, they will make the Hudson Health Alliance and Westchester Medical Center will make more money from the state to have those hospital beds over in Dutchess County. So it's profits over people.
Just because the rate is higher per bed?
Yes.
Significantly, I guess. Wow. So then our residents will be forced to go to Northern Dutchess, for instance, as one option, or Poughkeepsie?
No, there's some inpatient beds that then have been transferred and over to Mid-Hudson Regional Hospital in Poughkeepsie, but not everyone is going there from Kingston ER. They're also being sent down to Westchester Medical Center. So people that, families that don't have a car, it's like an increased burden on them to go participate in their family members' care or to even go visit them.
Go ahead, Alderman Scott Childress, and then Rita Worthington.
I absolutely support this resolution. I see it as a miniature version of what Naomi Klein calls crisis capitalism. Basically, what you've got is a company that is using this COVID crisis to achieve its own benefit with having very little regard for the people it is supposed to serve. And to pull these services out of Kingston and force people who, a lot of whom do not have resources, do not have adequate transportation, forcing them to go. I know that Michelle mentioned a couple of places, but they can be sent anywhere in this entire district. And as she noted, hours away. And, if you need these services multiple times, this is a huge problem. And so I think, too, that Kingston is a center of social services. And so to remove this kind of support is absolutely unconscionable, because you've got a significant population of folks who need precisely this service here. So I'm very glad that Alderman Hirsch brought this forward, and I'm excited to sign on to it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rita.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yeah, Rennie basically just said what I wanted to say, and I thank you, Michelle, for bringing this to us. I'm in 100% agreement and in support of it. And it's just, to me, it's despicable. First of all, that's not what when the services were first moved over to Dutchess County, and we were told that they were coming back. So, and for them to now go against it, to me is despicable, especially during this time, during COVID, with mental health services on the rise and incidences on the rise. For them to be doing this is just, once again, I want to emphasize despicable. And so I'm in support of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, Patrick. Alderman O'Reilly.
This is eye-opening, isn't it? Jeez, terrible. Thank you, Michelle, for bringing this to the council and, just letting our community know what's happening to us. Thank you very much.
I'm going to just ask all of you, if we pass this if you pass this resolution tonight, I'm going to create some information that we can all share, and to please get our constituents to send an email, send a tweet, whatever, we need to let Albany know that our voices, are heard. We need to let our community know by doing this that we are supporting them. And a lot of these people are forgotten. They're not, we don't know who they are. And we need to send a strong message that as a community, we support them, by taking this action that we're here for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I wrote a committee report here to adopt a memorializing resolution supporting the return of adult inpatient behavioral health and detox units to the Marys Avenue campus of the Health Alliance Hospital of the Hudson Valley, as per attached. Do I have a motion? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Rita Worthington. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Michelle, for bringing this up. This is a great initiative, and
thank you.
With everything that was said.
I'm going to send this out to all the town supervisors in the county and ask them to pass similar legislation so that the whole county voice is heard. And I know that the county legislature is also passing something, so it's great that we can all come together on this. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, so the next thing on our agenda is the affordable housing zoning amendment. We discussed this, we've been discussing it, but last month we left it at, we have received comments from all the agencies that we referred this to. We had discussed the possibility of overriding some of the suggestions from the county planning board, and Dan Gartenstein, Corp Counsel, had mentioned that we needed, if we were to do that, we would need a supermajority vote. So I had asked non-committee members to attend this meeting, but nobody else did. So, well, yes, Alderwoman Hirsch did. So I think if we have 6 votes here, yes, go ahead, Alderman.
I just want to note the problem is that there was a miscommunication that suggested there would not be a Laws and Rules meeting tonight, and the police task force is having its public meeting right now. So I know Alderman Davis, for example, is over there. I came from there over here, and there may be other members of the council. So I just want to point out that there may be extenuating circumstances.
Okay. Well, I don't know that that any action would have taken place today, but it would have been good to get a feel for where other non-committee members would stand on this, since, as I mentioned, it would require a supermajority. But I also sent out the language that was submitted back in May. Did everybody have a chance to look through that? Any comments or questions on that? Nothing? Oh, okay. Dan, do you have anything to add? What would be our next step on this?
Hold on. The next step would be to confirm that everyone has actually gone through the legislation, has read it, is familiar with the issues that are being raised, and is ready to discuss them, progressively, one at a time. There are a number of issues that the council has to discuss. Jeffrey indicated that you were going to need to, a supermajority, actually it would be to override city planning, not county planning. At the time of the last meeting, the county planning comments, the committee members did not have them, despite the fact that they were sent back in February or March when the proposal was originally forwarded to the council. So just to confirm that everybody has the legislation, that everyone has read the legislation, that they're familiar with it, and that they have reviewed the comments from the three other boards and have reviewed those. And then the committee has to start going through the issues one at a time, discussing them and coming up with a consensus.
Alderman Scott Childress.
Yes, so I have the communication we got from Melissa that's got the letters from the HLPC and the city planning board. Did we also get the recommendation from the county? Because that was the one, they were at odds with the city planning board on whether or not to allow for some variances that the planning board would have the power to grant.
Yes, you got the county's comments, I believe, back in April.
Yes,
and I believe they were also attached to the resolution when it was originally discussed during the spring. The county's comments were focused more on the formulas for determining affordability. They did disagree with city planning, but they also addressed other issues. And that you all should have that. It was forwarded quite a while ago.
Yeah. So, but we also got that was forwarded to us today by Alyssa. So I thank her for that. But it doesn't have the county comments. So I guess we'll spend some time finding those earlier comments.
I had seen them back in when it was sent originally. I didn't realize it was not on the agenda today. Having said that, should we just discuss this next month again? Since some of you didn't have that. Go ahead.
Jeffrey, did you confirm that the email that you that the resolution that you pulled off the city website and the resolution did not have the county comments attached to it?
Not that I know of. What I sent today was
I believe that it did, but in any event, the county comments are readily available. And you all need to familiarize yourself with them. There are some fairly complicated issues with regard to calculation of eligibility, and some other issues they raise with regard to the percentage of affordable units. Those issues, need to be, digested by each of you. You have to read through the document. And you have to, identify and, articulate questions that can be addressed at a subsequent meeting.
Okay, thank you. I just got a text that Alderman Davis is on the call and would like to speak. So I'm assuming he's caller number 2. Elisa, could you unmute him, please?
Hello?
Hey, Tony.
Yeah, I was trying to get before. I didn't know how to go about it. So we're talking about. I'm trying to do both here because I'm sitting here listening to this police task force and trying to listen to you guys as well. Uh, this this initiative. So this initiative you're talking about, and with the housing. So it's got a lot of issues coming up.
Yes, so this was back in the spring. We got a communication from the zoning CBA asking us to modify the zoning code to include affordable housing, 10% affordable housing in all new buildings.
Okay, all righty. Because I know I was looking at the what I read there today. I remember something saying about 80% of medium income. Can you? I don't have it in front of me, but is that correct? The communication I received from you today, or we all received from you?
Yeah, so that's the language that was proposed. Defining affordable housing would be at or below 80% of the county median income.
All right, because I have this one, because I was looking at the KCLB yesterday when we had the City Hall and budget meeting. It states in there something out there. It states will be sold, that the homes will be sold to families and covering at something I wrote here, covering at or below 100% of area median income in Ulster County. And I remember all the women and Worthington bringing that up. So is that a conflict there that needs to be looked at?
I don't believe so, because this would only apply to new buildings of, I believe, is 10 units or more. I don't remember.
Okay, so this will only be regard to new units.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, alrighty. I just had that because that came up in a question came up in my mind yesterday today when I was looking at that, and I remember the discussions discussion I had yesterday with Michael Gerard. So I just wanted to bring that up. So, and okay. I'm not going to keep you guys long. And I guess there's some more information that I'm going to have to dive into, and before the next laws and rules, or before we actually start discussing and voting on this. But
correct. Thank you, Tony.
All righty. Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too. Dan, and then Rennie.
Yeah, so the first issue that you all have to grapple with before you even address the objections and comments by the county planning and by city planning is whether you wish to change what currently reads in the code as guidelines for affordable housing, which is not mandatory and is not required, whether you wish to change those to requirements for affordable housing. Okay, that's the first issue, and that's the main issue that the ZBA dealt with in the appeal that they heard back in February. Currently, the code reads that we have affordable housing guidelines, and there is nothing that is mandatory or enforceable on any developer. The second issue you have to address is whether or not you want those requirements, if you decide they should be requirements, to apply citywide uniformly, or whether, as they currently read, they should only apply in the mixed-use overlay districts. So those are the two main issues that you have to address moving forward. Currently, we have no requirements for affordable housing anywhere in the city pursuant to the decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Go ahead, Alderman Scott Childress. Okay. So, all right. So I guess we will continue to look at this. We will, I guess, discuss this, try to discuss this again now that we have the language at caucus, and see where other council members stand, if they are willing to go with what the city planning suggested, or if we have the votes to override that, if that's where it goes.
Well, but again, the issue of whether or not you're overriding the city planning board or the county planning board is secondary to the discussion of whether you want to implement requirements and whether you want them to be citywide. And that's a discussion that should, if possible, start this evening. And then if you want them to be requirements and you want them to be citywide, the question becomes what those requirements should look like. The override only relates to requirements if you decide that you want to implement them.
Correct, but it was my understanding that everybody was already on board with adding the requirement. Is that?
There has never been a discussion of that at this point, certainly not on the record and certainly not deliberated in a way that can be supported for any kind of legislation. Because when you brought it up initially in the spring, the only issue was referring it out for comment. So there has been no substantive discussion with regard to that issue up until this point.
I thought we discussed that last month, but how does everybody feel about this?
Well, I have a question for Dan. Would it be beneficial to call a special council meeting just to have everyone present to discuss and deliberate these 2 points?
You have 6 members present this evening.
Okay.
The communication has been referred to laws and rules. Under your procedure, it's supposed to start with laws and rules. So if there is a majority of this committee that is in support of that, you don't need the rest of the council at this juncture. At this point, for the record, nobody has stated their position about either of those issues because they haven't been discussed yet.
Okay, so I'll start. I'm in favor of adding this requirement. I've stated before, yeah, I think the question that we had last month was whether we agreed with the suggestion of the planning board, but I don't think anybody here said that they were not in favor of modifying this. Rita Worthington had her hand up, and then Alderwoman.
Yeah,
And then,
for the record, I am in favor of adding the requirements, point 1 and point 2.
Look at this.
Alderwoman Hirsch.
Now look, it's frozen.
So sorry. I am in favor of adding the required
It's frozen.
code to be to apply citywide in all areas of the city to be uniform.
Alderman Tollerman.
I'm in favor of it. Just always have been.
Okay,
Just for the record.
thank you. Alderman Scott Childress.
I am in favor of extending the requirement citywide. I'm also in favor of having hard numbers instead of percentages, so that we make it very clear. You know, if you're building a development that's got 5 units, 1 unit has to be affordable. You know, that sort of thing. The exact numbers, I think, would be a little bit up in the air. But I would also like to say that I'm not necessarily in favor of this as either the only or the dominant way of doing this. I'm in favor of it right now because it's all we've got. But there are other approaches to creating affordable housing throughout the city. And I would hope that we would continue to investigate those and look for other options. So that this would be one way of doing it, but not the only way.
Patrick, how do you feel? Alderman O'Reilly?
I have to get some more information on this topic, Jeffrey.
Okay, that's fair.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm hearing a majority, 5 of you indicating that you're in favor of making them requirements, 5 of you in favor of making them citywide. clearly that is a majority of the council. So those issues, can be taken off the table. With regard to Rennie's comment about hard numbers as opposed to percentages, that was also one of the comments that, or one of the required modifications from the city planning board. So that certainly can be phrased in terms of numbers. So that's not really an issue. The other issue that needs to be addressed is how we are going to calculate eligibility. And, I believe that there needs to be some sort of presentation to the Laws and Rules Committee with regard to the manner that the county wants you to calculate, as opposed to the suggestion that has already been put forth in this legislation. So most likely, the next step would be having someone from the county appear at the next meeting and explain to you their idea for calculation of eligibility, and then perhaps have either Mike Gilliard or the mayor here to explain to you their position with regard to eligibility, and you can process that information and decide which direction you want to go in.
Thank you. Alderman Scott Childress.
Yeah, I think that's crucial because in the code changes that we were looking at, it suggested that these rates would be revisited every year. It suggested the use of median income, but it didn't clarify which body that determines the median income we would actually use. So we would want to be very clear about which body. It also didn't clarify, what the time period would be. If there's a specific, if we're using HUD's numbers, if they, put out those numbers at on a specific date every year, I would think we would want to put that in the code so that we'd be clear that that would be the time when, we would look at revising our numbers.
Yeah, Jeffrey, Rennie, this is much like the chicken legislation. We are not really talking about changing language that is currently in the code. What we're talking about is taking the language that currently is in the mixed-use overlay district sections and making it a standalone section that applies to the entire city. Currently, it's only in the mixed-use overlay district, and it is only phrased as guidelines. So it would be simply changing guidelines to requirements, making it citywide, and then moving from there to adjust the specific language that's there. Okay, this isn't really a change to the language that's currently in the code.
I would like to pursue a path of being clearer than some of the language that is in the current code. So however we do that, I'm open to, but I think it needs to be done so that we're clear when these things need to happen, because this is the dilemma with our zoning code right now. There's contradictions. There's lack of clarity. So.
Thank you. Alderwoman Hirsch.
My understanding is that we also have to decide on the percentage, 10%, 20%, like how much that we want to require.
Correct. And that's something that was mentioned last month, and that's why the discussion of overriding the city planning board came up, because we had discussed that maybe 10% was not enough. It was also mentioned the city planning board wants to have the discretion to grant exemptions to it. So we had discussed maybe not doing that. But I think that the initial conversation about whether we want this and how we want this to happen, and then we can iron out all the details.
Right. I'm just concerned about going backwards from 20% in the overlay district, to then only 10% in the whole city. I think that's just a discussion and figuring out those numbers and what does that look like.
Thank you. Alderman Scott Childress.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really important conversation to have. But building to some degree on what Dan was saying, I think the first thing is we want to get clarity, in the simplest way possible, and then look to some of these other issues so that we really think through. And this is what I was suggesting too. I'm not particularly wedded to this as the approach for developing more affordable housing in Kingston, but that's a longer conversation than trying to clarify, these particular points that we're looking at. So we definitely need to have that conversation.
Thank you. So I will contact representatives from the Ulster County Planning Board and Mike Gilliard and the mayor to attend our next month's meeting. Yes, Alderman Scott Childress.
I would actually like to second Michelle Hirsch's idea of having a special meeting for this. It seems to me that it's one that is significant, and it would represent too. It's something that really has to be thought through, and we have to get public input, because I can imagine there's a number of people who are involved in real estate, who are involved in development, who will have some points of view that they want to air out. Normally we would do that through the constituent process, which I'm fine with. But I think if we have a special meeting, that's one way of clarifying to folks that this is going to happen, and it would behoove them to bring this up sooner rather than later with us.
That's a good idea. So what are you thinking, the special meeting before the next Laws and Rules meeting or before the full council meeting?
One issue is how time sensitive is this? Part of me is thinking we're heading into winter now, and this is not a time when a lot of development gets happening. The question is, do we have another month to deal with this? Is there an impending issue? So if there's another month, it's again something that I think would be important for us to publicize so that we get a lot of public input, or at least, make it possible, let it be known far and wide that we want to get input on this.
Yeah, well, it's been on the table since the spring, so I don't see it as being extremely time sensitive. Dan Garnstein?
Just so everyone understands that any development that is put in front of the planning board prior to this being adopted will have no requirement with regard to affordable housing. So in terms of whether this is time sensitive, developments are being addressed every month. Again, the extent to which you drag this out is directly relevant to whether certain developers are going to submit their applications in order to avoid whatever requirements you put in place. So there is time sensitivity here, and it's a real issue.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Rennie, were you going to say something?
Oh no, Patrick wants to say something.
Go ahead, Pat.
I think Randy made a good point. I think we do need to have a public meeting. Thanks, Jim. And Michelle, thank you.
So go ahead, Rita Worthington.
So Dan mentioned having someone from the county come in and talk to us about, what their issues are, what their requirements are. I think that makes sense. And at that time, can we then also, can we publicize that we're going to have someone come in from the county and talk to us? And then at the next Laws and Rules, constituents will be invited to that. And if they had questions, that would be the time to do it at that time. That way we kind of kill two birds with one stone, where we don't drag this out, but we also get the information that we're looking for.
Alderman Scott Childress.
Yeah, so to kind of combine Dan's concern with Rita's point here, What if we looked at a meeting about three weeks from now? So that would be before the next laws and rules meeting. That would give us plenty of time to let people know, to try to publicize the issue. We might be able to get Summer Smith to put out a press release. And then that would also give us a chance to get all this information digested some before, and then at the next laws and rules meeting, we could make some actual decisions, perhaps.
Okay, I'll talk to the council president and make arrangements for that. I don't think we have a very full, that would be early December. So I don't know how everybody's schedule looks like, but I'll come up with some dates then and forward it to the rest of the committee.
We're not traveling.
And so that would mean then a full council vote in January? Okay.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so now we are moving on to chickens. So we had referred this matter of moving the chapter 405 from the zoning, the chapter regarding chickens from the zoning code into the animal control portion of the city code. We received responses, and I believe the next step would be to actually vote to take that step. The HLPC and the planning board didn't have any objections to doing this. So any questions or comments?
Yeah, Jeff, the county hasn't responded yet, and technically their time to respond has not elapsed. It has not been on their agenda yet. They are planning to address it at their, I believe, at the December meeting. So no action can be taken at this point.
Okay. Alderman O'Reilly, do you have a question? All right, so since no action is taken, we have nothing else on the agenda. I think this is a first when we had a meeting that lasted less than an hour. I'm sorry?
They're the cute little doggy.
Hey, sir. She wanted to hear a vote on the chicken law tonight.
Oh. So, anything else to discuss? Any other comments, questions, announcements? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn then. Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Rita Worthington. All in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alderwoman Hirsch, for your presentation.
Thank you. And thank you, Chairman Jeffrey Ventura Morel. I think you did a great job
Hosting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I didn't realize how long the script to read at the beginning.
Putting everybody on the spot, Jeffrey.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a
This
good night.
conference is no longer being recorded.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.